Bertrand Piccard is a man who needs little introduction. He is a Swiss pilot, adventurer, environmentalist, scientist, and psychiatrist. He is a hero to many around the world for many reasons. But, for example, he was the first person to fly a hot air balloon all the way around the world. Inspired by this adventure, his second was to fly a solar-powered plane all around the world with his project with Solar Impulse. And now he's working on 1,000 solutions to better the environment that don't come at the cost of prosperity. And we are excited today to welcome Bertrand Piccard to IMD through E4S to discuss topics like living with purpose, mental health, stress, and resilience. Thank you for joining me today, Bertrand. Leaders are told that it's really important to lead with a sense of purpose and find your sense of purpose and who you are and project that to others. And I feel that there's a little bit of pressure on the other side of people to kind of find the meaning of life, what they're meant to do at a young age and kind of achieve that. You obviously lead with a clear sense of purpose. When did you discover that and how?
But you know, purpose is not enough because everybody has a purpose. But sometimes it's a very, very bad purpose. Sometimes it's just to attack the next country, to steal all the wealth that the neighbors have. Sometimes the purpose is to be very famous. And sometimes the purpose is to discover the meaning of life. Yeah. So I think it's a question of which purpose you're going to choose. And depending on the values you have and the type of purpose you choose, you can have a very fulfilled life or a very stressful life, and because you won't have the good balance between what you look for and what you really get.
Oh, that's super interesting. So there's actually a little bit, there could be a dark side to leading with purpose, depending on...
It depends which purpose you have.
Yeah, it depends on...
It's true. So to answer your question a bit more precisely now, when I was a child, the people I met were people who had the purpose to explore, to discover, to go beyond the obvious, to do things that nobody had done before, and who accepted to take the risk to fail in order maybe to succeed. So I spent my childhood with explorers, with the early astronauts of the American space program. I met Charles Lindbergh. My father and my grandfather were explorers. So it gave me a sense of really trying to learn from life what can serve your spirit of pioneering and your spirit of exploration. So when there was a failure, the question was more what to learn from the failure than, oh, that's bad, why did I fail? I should have succeeded. So I was always in this trend of trying to find the solutions to reach the goal, and knowing that the goal was something that was not an end in itself, it was a way to open other doors and go even further.
So what would you say then are the kind of values that you live by, that you achieve through your work?
There are three values that have always guided my education and now the education of my own children. It's curiosity, because without curiosity you try nothing new. Mm-hmm. It's perseverance, because without perseverance you don't succeed in the new things you try. And the third one is respect, because if you have no respect, that means no compassion, no value given to others, your success will have no interest. They will just serve nothing.
That's really inspiring. And do you find that you always knew this, or it evolved over time? So when you realized it through your work, through all of the different adventures you've taken, through your activism, through the difference you want to make, did you know that right away, or was this a process of discovering? And is it evolving?
Well, it's always a process that is evolving, but I was in a big paradox as a teenager. Yeah. I was dreaming of being an incredibly curious explorer, and on the other hand, I was afraid to climb in a tree because I had fear of height.
Really?
So there was a big paradox. And I think what I did in my life was to have a compass in my heart that was having the needle not showing the north, but showing the unknown. showing things that had never been done, which means that each time I had an opportunity, I thought, okay, this I have to try, this I have to explore, this I have to understand. The only thing I never tried was drugs, because I think there is no benefit for it. Mm-hmm. But everything else I tried, and sometimes I thought, okay, this is for me, this is not for me. But when I was trying hang gliding with my fear of height,
that must have been frightening.
It cured me.
Wow.
Completely, because I discovered how you can connect to yourself, connect to your awareness to be alive in your body, in order to be in the present moment. And when you are in the present moment, you are not projecting yourself in something that makes you a lot of stress or a lot of fear. So I was doing aerobatic with my hang gliding as a young boy, 2,000 or 3,000 meters high in the sky, and I was feeling good. I was finally feeling good despite my fear of heights. And I saw how much you can evolve. The only limitations you have are the one you give yourself. So you need to go outside of your zone of comfort and explore and see what you can learn. And sometimes you say, I love that, I will continue. And sometimes you say, I don't like it, I will stop. It's a dead end, let's take another one.
So that practice of getting used to trying and failing or shifting paths as you go.
I think what makes a lot of stress in our world today is the fact that people are afraid to fail. Which means that they will be afraid to try, because maybe if they try, they're going to fail. And this is a big handicap.
Where do you think that comes from? That fear of failure, of not trying, and because you don't want to fail?
Because I think we are putting the value of performance compared to others instead of comparing to ourselves. We can be very performant ourselves and do a lot of good things, but maybe it's not exactly the same performance than other people in your team or in your company. And it will make a disbalance. So finally, you don't give enough value to each one, and you try to standardize the people to all have the same value or do the same thing, and you try to compare people together instead of saying this one is perfect for this and this one is perfect for exactly the opposite.
Yeah, so it's a little bit of a process of finding who you are and your values and what you're good at and your strengths, but also as a leader finding that in others and the people that you work with and rewarding them for that.
Yes, and this is the moment where you have to discover what is the purpose you put for yourself in your life and what is the purpose you put for your company or for your project. In Solar Impulse, it was 15 years of hassle and burden before we could have this airplane flying around the world with no fuel. All the possible problems, you have them. Meteorology, technology, bureaucracy, administration, team, finance, everything was a problem. Why did the team perform so well? Because they were not welding two electric wires to make a solar cell connected to a battery. No, they were changing the world. This was their purpose. And once there's the chief engineer who said to his girlfriend, who was angry because he was not taking enough care of her, he said, if you want to change the world, you have to make some sacrifice. You have to accept that I will be working day and night, and including weekends and holidays. That was our chief engineer. He was changing the world. He was not building an airplane, because this airplane was the symbol of how we could behave without fossil fuel, how we could be more efficient, how we could be cleaner. It was a signal given to the world. And this is why the team was so dedicated and so enthusiastic. If I had told them, I want to make a world record with a new type of airplane, can you please build it for me and you call me when it's finished? I tell you, we would have failed.
And so it's interesting, you're saying there's almost like a North Star that people hold on to, and it gives you motivation to weather the storm. Would you say, and because that process, 18 years you said, what was was there ever a point in that process, in this end goal, this purpose you're all working to, where you said, let's just throw in the towel, this is just too hard?
No, because I knew in advance that it would be hard, and it was the choice I made for my life. If I wanted an easy life, I would not have taken that path. I knew it would be hard, but I knew it would be rewarding, and I knew it would be interesting.
And so that allowed you to project it to others and,
Yes.
and
Yes.
bring others along in your journey.
But you know what makes a lot of stress is when you visualize the goal without visualizing every day's work to reach the goal. It means if I was all the time thinking, oh, I hope I will succeed, I see myself crossing the finish line and it will be fantastic and we'll have a great celebration, the 15 years are impossible to cope with because you're never in the present moment. But if you are in the present moment and you say, okay, I'm preparing something, we will see when it comes. We will see when the plane is ready. We will see if it flies well. But now let's do everything the best we can. Then it's a progress. Then it's a path you're on, and then it's a real learning.
Oh, that's really
And
interesting.
this is something I believe that is not so well explained now in our world. In our world, if you ask the people, for what do you work? For what do you live? What are they going to answer? A lot of them are going to answer, I don't know. Or a lot of people are going to say, I work to make my company more profitable. And maybe some of them will say, I work to have more money. But who is going to say, I work to be fulfilled? I work to be useful. I work to have my family happy. I work in order to understand why I'm on this planet and what I have to do here and what's the purpose of living and life, death, and spirituality. Now, with all what I have described, you can see which one are the one who are stressed and which one are the one who are more fulfilled.
What do you think's happening right now in the world when it comes to stress? Do you think people are not able to access their purpose, or do you think the COVID-19 pandemic has really stopped people from achieving that or feeling like they're achieving? What's your
Well, the
reflections on that?
pandemic is a really interesting moment that tends to make us remember that we are not invulnerable. Since 60 years, there were no big pandemics, no big wars in the Western world, and we tended to think we are more powerful than life, more powerful than nature. We are invulnerable. And we started to act as predators against nature, to just put our power everywhere, to try to control everything. And now suddenly it's a lesson of being more humble. And I think we really deserve to be more humble because we have destroyed life, we have behaved with no respect for other human beings. When you see the developing world with the inequalities we're in, when you see that you have slaves working to have your t-shirts at a cheap price, it's not acceptable. It's not acceptable at all. So we have to put the values of human being, the values of being alive, the values of the beauty of, or the magic of nature on this planet at a much higher level.
And so this, you've said once that people will only change if there's a crisis, right? And it's a huge opportunity for change. So what do you think? Do you see some positive change that can come out of this tough situation that the world has faced? I mean, the world has been more polarized than ever. You know, we've been facing the pandemic. People feel isolated and socially isolated from their families. What do you see as the upside of this, coming out of this?
We have a window of opportunity that is absolutely unique today. There are trillions of dollars flooding on the market for what is called the economic recovery. So either we use this money to recover what we had before the crisis, all the old, inefficient, outdated and polluting infrastructures and systems and technologies, thermal engines, badly insulated buildings, old industrial processes, using fossil energy to make movement, electricity or heat, and then the crisis is for nothing. We will have suffered for nothing and we will have lost the opportunity of change. Or we use these trillions of dollars to create a more efficient process, infrastructure, economy, industry, We invest on clean mobility, on carbon neutral buildings and constructions, on renewable energies, on new industrial processes, on new business opportunities, like all what you can do with the waste, what you can do with the circular economy. All this can be pushed with these investments, and then the crisis will have been really useful, because we will end up the crisis being a modern and clean and efficient society. Are we going to take this path? I don't know. I hope, because there won't be another opportunity with zero interest rate and trillions of dollars that can come for the use of everybody.
It's interesting. It's almost like connecting, the living with personal purpose and values to having positive impact on the world and really seizing the opportunity for change. It's almost that this pandemic has given us acknowledging all the downsides, but it's given us an opportunity to stop, reconnect to who we are and where we're going, and say, are we on the right path?
Yes.
And I certainly hope we are taking that path,
Yes.
the second one that you outlined.
But this shows also that there is one topic that people usually don't dare to speak about. Because we speak of nature, we can speak of efficiency, we can speak of equality, we can speak of a lot of things. But there is one word that people usually don't dare to use, is the word spirituality. What is the spiritual understanding we have about life? Are we alone, coming from nowhere and going nowhere, and the goal is to be rich and famous and comfortable during our life? Or is there a meaning in all this? Do we come from somewhere? We don't know from where. Do we go somewhere else? We don't know where this somewhere else. And there is something to learn. Maybe there is some spiritual values to develop, like wisdom, kindness, compassion, respect, all this more subtle energy that can maybe lift us up to other understanding, or not.
I teach a class on purpose, and I ask, actually, are you connected to a sense of spirituality? And that is the one, exactly like you said, that most people find it most difficult to talk about.
And I think we should talk about it. I think spirituality is something that can federate. It's not putting people apart. Religion is putting people apart. If you want to have problems with all your friends, you speak about religion or politics. But if you speak of spirituality, it's something that is federating. Because in every religion, you can find some spirituality. And even outside of religion, you can find some spirituality. This feeling or experience of belonging to something bigger than human being. And if you put this in your lectures, in your teaching, and you speak about it with your students, I think it will help us to understand that it is something normal. It's a topic that we have to take into consideration. It is not something private to put apart and then we go to work and work as much as we can. No. Everything has to be put at the same level in order to be like a puzzle where all the pieces find their place. If there is a piece missing, we're going to suffer. Maybe suffering is the signal that an important part is missing in the puzzle of our life. Otherwise, there's no real reason of suffering.
It might trigger people to do a bit more reflection.
Yes.
And that leads into, I was going to ask you, how do you think people can find that sense of purpose, that's their values? How do you tap into something bigger?
First, by asking the question. A lot of people don't ask the question. Do we ask to our friends, what's your purpose in life? Why do you live? Once I invited some friends with the goal of speaking of our purpose in life. And they all told me, you know what, it's a fantastic experience. It never happened. We never had an invitation where we were speaking about this. How did you dare to do it? But it's fantastic.
It's a great dinner party idea, actually.
Yeah, but it should be normal to speak about that. And it should be normal to include this topic in everything we do and everything we teach.
And do you think that finding the sense of purpose. If I connect that into what's happening in the world in terms of stress, and people are feeling lonely and under an immense pressure, do you think when you were in your toughest situations, so let's say you're in isolation in a plane, how do you keep that sense of purpose, that motivation going, or get through the dark times? Did you have any dark times?
I never felt as well in my life as when I was alone in the cockpit of Solar Impulse, in the middle of the night, thousands of kilometers from any possible rescue. And why that? Just because I was cut from all my habits. I was outside of my comfort zone, and I was obliged to find the solutions, not outside of me, but inside of me, because I was alone. And this is a moment where you discover that all the skills you need are inside of yourself. And when you are like in a crisis and you have to desperately find the solutions, and you are obliged to go and dig inside of yourself. And when you find that you have everything you need, it gives a lot of confidence. A lot of confidence. And confidence is more important than courage. With courage, you go despite the fear. With confidence, you see that maybe there is no need for fear, because at the end, you have everything you need. But this is also something we don't teach people enough.
Do you think, leaders today in organizations, they're saying, my people are stressed. How do I help them?
Leaders or managers?
Managers. Well, I guess that depends on what.
It's very different, huh?
Yeah.
The leader is the one who shows a purpose that will motivate everyone, will explain why we have to reach that goal. The manager is the one who will work on the what to do to reach the goal. It's very, very different. So the question, you're a manager, you're a leader, your people are stressed, you have to understand if it's your fault. Maybe you ask too much. For Solar Impulse, there were moments where it was tough.
Yeah.
And it's true that there was a lot of work, a lot of difficulties to solve. There was a time frame, there was goals to reach. It was not easy, but we could all speak about it, and we knew why we wanted to do it. They were working for a project that was our project. And sometimes I even had the impression I was working for them. Because it became their airplane. The engineers built the plane, they loved that plane. And although I was the leader of the project, sometimes they considered me as the guinea pig flying in their airplane. So it was quite funny. But I think what is clearly bad today in our world is when you have to work like hell just for others. And if you have a company where everybody is stressed because all the employees have to work for the company, for the profit of the shareholders, for the profit of the manager or the CEO or the chairman or whatever, it's a complete disbalance. You know the story of the manager who arrives with a beautiful sport car at the factory, and the employee says, "Oh, Mr. Director, you have a beautiful new car." And he said, "Oh yes, it's a beautiful car, but if during 1 year you will work very hard, you will make additional hours, you will take less holidays and less weekends, I will have an even better car next year."
We've covered a lot, from purpose through to what organizations can do, to what people can do. And you, as a human, what's next for you? Or what are you excited about?
Going around the world again with this guide of 1,000+ solutions, because now I think it's already 1,100 and it will soon be 1,500. Go with these 1,000+ solutions to the governments, the heads of states, the big corporations, the big institutions, and show them what are the tools that they can use to reach their environmental pledges. Because it's very nice to say we want to be carbon neutral in 2050, but how do they do that? They don't know. It took us 4 years to identify these solutions. So it's a fantastic tool that we offer. It's a non-for-profit operation. We can offer all this and show What are the regulations that can be adapted to really boost the adoption of some of these technologies? What are the new legal framework? What are the new norms and standards for ecological things that you have to put in place in order to pull these innovations to the market? Because today, the regulation still allows to live in the past with polluting devices. And it's legal to pollute. So how are we going to do better? No, we need to introduce also a legal framework that is really an encouragement for these new technologies to bloom on the market, and this will create more jobs, and this will create more wealth, and at the same time ensure carbon neutrality.
It's really inspiring too, and I hope we can get that message out. And so just wrapping up then, if you were going to leave a few messages for the future leaders of tomorrow, or current leaders, but also those who are just finding their feet in leadership, in business, in government, or wherever they end up, what would those few messages be?
You have to understand that what you do has to be useful for others. That the goal should be to reduce the suffering and the inequalities in this world, but in a way that is compatible with economy, with politics, with normal life for everyone. And maybe, but yeah, do I dare? Yeah, I dare to say it. Okay.
Go for it.
What we see is not everything that exists. There are a lot of things in the spiritual dimension that maybe have much more value than what we see here. And if we put all our energy only for the material stuff, we lose all the energy we can have to find something that is maybe bringing us to more wisdom, more kindness, more compassion, which means that maybe we lose our life when we try to win it.
Thank you so much for coming today, for sharing your insights and your wisdom and your ways and mindsets through which you see the world, because I think it's a powerful message for everyone, for future leaders, but also current leaders and aspiring leaders today. So I really appreciate your time on behalf of IMD and on behalf of E4S.
Thank you for bringing me on this field, because it's not always that I'm asked to speak about this very important things. So thank you to you.